Happy New Year, fans, and welcome to the first edition for 2024 of the Shooting from the Hip podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and I have with me the man who is known as the Kingpin, the King of the Streets, the one, the only, the legendary Angel Medina.
The Tower of Power, too sweet to be sour. You know, Happy New Year, my brother. I mean, it's 7 days in, man, and already 2 people died in the entertainment business. I think 3, but it's just crazy.
Unbelievable.
I know, man.
And with other world events, this is shaping up to be a wild ride this year, not only in wrestling but across the global spectrum. Of course, an election year in your fine country, and that will no doubt have long-standing consequences. Some have called it the most important election in the history of the U.S., but all that notwithstanding, we are here for this broadcast to recognize what is debatably, and I'll put some context around that in a minute, the 40th anniversary of the birth of Hulkamania.
Absolutely. But before we get into the Hulkster, brother, I wanted to run this by you before the show started. I was watching a lot of things on the news, from people from Kiss to now I heard that they're going to do something in Australia for Elvis, where they're doing this AI. Kiss is down with it because they want to live forever, and they're going to have this permanent concert. Now, like I said, they're going to do the Elvis Presley. I don't know if it's old Elvis Presley or current Elvis, old back then or old now. But they're going to be a major concert. So I was wondering, do you think, with all those times we talk about, what if Hulk Hogan faced Steve Austin? What if the Macho Man Randy Savage wrestled, AJ Styles? Would you ever think that will ever put those type of matches together and charge people for an AI virtual wrestling event?
You know what? That is an excellent question, my friend. And I actually was talking about the Kiss version the past couple of days, and I was kind of shaking my head, knowing that the thrill for the live audience is to actually see the folks performing. All that notwithstanding, though, I think that if the music version is successful, then of course wrestling will do that too. For example, like Bruno Sammartino facing Roman Reigns or something along those lines. I definitely see at least WWE venturing into that domain. Think about it this way: if they are cutting back on house shows or live events or whatever you want to call it, if they're only doing certain specific A markets, this is an opportunity for them to run the smaller B and C markets and pull a profit out of it. So I think as the market bears the initial forays into AI, if that is successful, I would more than bet on the fact that they will try that. Whether it's a success or not, I'm not sure, because as you know better than I, the appeal of pro wrestling is audience interactivity, and how are you going to interact with holograms?
No, absolutely. But that's the weirdest thing, is that when it comes to holograms, now these AIs are, you put in enough information, they will interact with you. So, and again, it was just me thinking out loud, because it'll be a big payday for Hogan, it'll be a big payday for Macho Man's family, or people who are still alive, Ricky Steamboat, and they're still getting a payday, but not putting their body into beat up, they're getting paid because of their name. So it was just curiosity. Like I said, all this is happening. I've been noticing it. So I've been noticing. Another thing I was also noticing is that on the Meta headsets, they have a subscription for people to see courtside, right there at the games. I told my girlfriend that I was wondering if they, again, with wrestling, getting that virtual, people on the apron, and you're in the ring. You see everything from all these angles, so you feel like you're in part of the ring. So I won't be surprised if that stuff happens.
Well, yeah, again, and profitability, and that is a new frontier, or a new income source that definitely I could see them exploring, at least in terms of the VR headset deal. But what are your thoughts on that in general? Is that a good thing for society, do you think, or is it a darker thing, considering how even oldsters like us are so used to having the smartphones attached to our hips, which are, brings positive aspects to it and negative. But I really am concerned about, folks that are going to be so immersed in this virtual reality gimmick that they lose touch with the real world. And that was actually foreshadowed decades ago from a series that Bill Shatner, Captain Kirk, had called Tech Wars, where people were addicted to this virtual reality deal, and
Yeah,
lost their mind.
it's also like the movie with Bruce Willis called Surrogate.
Mm-hmm.
You ever saw that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Where everybody's like in their house, but their consciousness is going into this like robot and stuff like that. It was a pretty good movie. But yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. It might happen, but it's just funny. I wanted to bring it up because it's a lot of things been happening on the news in regards to AI and all these events. So I figured that would be I needed to bring it up. I think that'd be interesting. But anyway, we took like 7 minutes off the show, so let's get back to the Hulkster, brother. 40 years of professional wrestling, brother. 40 years of climbing to the mountaintop,
And body slamming Andre the Giant when he was 800 pounds, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, this is right off the bat. I should set the context here. A couple of the fans on social media, when we announced that this topic was happening, chimed in to say, you know what, it's actually more like 45 years of Hulkamania, and not 40. And readily acknowledge, being an old school AWA fan, that Hulkamania was its genesis of the Hulk Hogan, the Hulk Hogan phenomenon really started in the AWA under Vern, and through a series of rather, in hindsight, not favorable booking decisions. He never actually got the strap from Bockwinkel. There were a couple of dusty finishes, and therefore he moved on to New York. So what I am considering to be the genesis of the modern phenomenon of Hulkamania as we know it occurred just tomorrow, actually, January the 8th, 1984, where Hogan was brought out to second Bob Backlund, the champion at the time, against one of the Samoans. And Vince, if you hear him on commentary, Vince indicates it's the return of Hulk Hogan to the WWF, in a rare acknowledgement of prior history. And from there, on January the 23rd, 1984, of course, he pinned the Sheik, and things got off ripping and rolling. So from a mainstream perspective, I think it's accurate to look at that date, January the 8th, 1984, as the start of the Hulkamania phenomenon. Also, interesting side note, that was the same broadcast that Mean Gene Okerlund debuted in the WWF, as he was also, I don't like to use the term rated, but Vince went hard on the AWA at that time, signing talent away.
Oh yeah,
perhaps only second to Georgia Championship Wrestling, or that's a debatable topic. But regardless, yes, we recognize that Hogan and Hulkamania was a thing before in the AWA, but that's what we're considering the jumping off point. Your thoughts on that, Kingpin?
Well, I mean, like I said, Hogan has been around forever. I mean, AWA was the starting point. I know he wrestled in Japan, but I mean, Hulkamania was building up in AWA. I mean, he was selling a shitload of shirts. merch. I mean, he was making a lot of money. They were giving him the red carpet treatment, but he needed to make some moves because the money was even better going to Vince. So, I mean, yeah, you could say it's 40, maybe it's 45 years of the birth. You could say the infancy of WrestleMania, but it wasn't born until it got to WWE or WWF, because it was. I mean, once it happened, it was hot. It blew the hell up. So, like I said, it was conceived, but it gave birth in another area. So, I mean, who says who has the rights? You know what I mean?
Well, here's a question, super chat from Benny Loco that is right in your wheelhouse, and I will leave this to you to address, as there's speculation out there in terms of the Gawker lawsuit. But how big is the Hulkster's crank? Evidently, he knows, or they know, that you would probably have that inside knowledge, being a street guy, and could comment.
I don't know that shit. I don't know how big his crank is. It's like it's probably a baby's arm holding an apple. I don't know.
That's Flair.
That's Flair.
That's
But
Flair.
oh man, that's funny. Shit. All 2 years from my professional wrestling career, I never met the Hulkster, man. I think it would have been cool to meet him once, but I never met him. So I met Macho. I met Steamboat. I met a lot. It's just some ones that I wanted to meet. He never came across my path. So,
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting him at a signing in and around WrestleMania in Toronto. Not the '90 version with him against Warrior, but the famous match in the Sky Dome where he faced The Rock, and they did the switch deal. And yeah, very gracious. I'll have to dig up that picture somewhere. But before we get any further, this is also an interesting question for you. Do you think Hulk can ever forgive Bubba the Love Sponge? And I haven't, I think, an answer for that, but what are your thoughts on that situation where apparently he was participating in sexual intercourse with Bubba's wife at the time?
Well, the thing is, man, I mean, truthfully, I don't think he'll ever forgive him, because wasn't Hogan still married at the time to Linda?
No.
Okay.
I think he was on the outs at that time. Yeah.
Well, you don't want to put the brother on blast, man, especially if it's your best friend. If it's your best friend, which is a weird thing, like, hey, fuck my wife, but unless, okay, fine, brother, I'll help you out, and then you record it, I mean, that's just weird, I mean. No, I don't think he will ever forgive him, man. I think it's that bridge is blown up to smithereens,
to bits.
To bits, because if it's a personal, private, consensual situation, and he's like, nobody's gonna know, man. My wife's into that stuff. I like to watch, and then you record, then you just like violated his privacy. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and it would appear that Bubba had ulterior motives for that, given the recording. And just recently, I think within the past 2 weeks, Nick Hogan was once again pinched for a DWI, and Bubba somehow got a hold of the footage and released it. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that. What he got pinched for again?
DWI this time again.
Interesting. Yeah, man, that kid. I mean, I would have sailed straight, especially after what happened with my best friend, in the car and paralyzed them. I would have quit drinking a long time ago. But I mean, if he's condoning, that habit, and not letting his son get some help, I wouldn't bail him out.
Well, it's just it was interesting to me that the heat between them, or at least the epicenter of the heat between them, is a long time ago now, and then that popped up. So not really a big fan of Bubba the Love Sponge one way or another, but yeah, I don't think that relationship is ever going to be prepared. But let's focus on some of the impacts of Hulkamania phenomenon that really had a very profound deal with the industry and changed it forever, and of course assisted in. I've got another super chat here. I have to put your way, Kingpin, here, because you seem to have the knowledge base to draw upon such matters. But Grizzly Adams is who said, "Did he have a beard?" Is saying Iron Sheik said Hulk Hogan was a gay bar bouncer. Is that true? I haven't heard that one personally.
I never. But you know what? He used to bounce around in bars. You know, he was. You know, he played the guitar and all that stuff with his band. Shit, I worked at a gay bar as a bouncer before in New York City. It was at the Pyramid Lounge in Alphabet City. It doesn't mean I was gay. The pay is the pay, and it was just, you know, it is what it is. And I'll be honest, you know, I could see Hogan doing it. I mean, like I said, it's a payday, you know. Now, if you said I heard Hogan used to get ticket in the rear in the bar, then that's a different story. But I won't be surprised that he worked in those bars. The Road Warriors used to work at bouncers. Rick Rude,
many wrestlers.
Yeah, did. So I mean, they were not just, you know, bars and strip clubs. I think they would have bounced around if the money's right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Regardless, it's a bouncing gig, so you know, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's a lifestyle choice, but the money's there. It's a payday. Why not? So the first aspect I wanted to bring to your attention, and we'll talk about a few here, is the fact that if you know anything about the history of Hulk Hogan, when he burst onto the national scene there in the WWF under that spotlight and with that machine behind him, he really created an iconic sort of character type, and that is the big superhuman, ultra babyface superhero against, you know, such evil monster heels. That kind of that character did business for a very, very long time when he was fed heel after heel after heel, monster heel after monster heel after monster heel. That was something that was somewhat not somewhat, it was rather groundbreaking at the time. That superhero type character, you must remember that as a kid growing up too.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, the saying your prayers, taking your vitamins, believing in yourself, you know, that was it, man. I mean, everybody was living the dream of Hulk Hogan. I was, you know, Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks, you know, Bundy, the fucking Zeus, dude. I paid for that shit. I remember I paid for that shit. It was no holds barred, and then either the match. Yeah, I think it was after the movie, then the match.
The movie.
Yeah, and I paid for that shit, and that was garbage. Garbage. They got Sonny Liston to portray a wrestler that he was not a wrestler, and it was a horrible thing. But again, I mean, I was all into that shit.
Or you know? Although one of the fans, Corbin Birdston, agrees, No Hold Barred was my favorite.
But the pay-per-view sucked. The pay-per-view was horrible. It was not worth the money that it was they were promoting. You know, I watched the shit out of No Holds Barred, you know. So nothing wrong with that. You know,
being up here in Canada, we were behind the eight ball in terms of pay-per-view. So I can recall as a kid very clearly begging my dad and some of my friends' dads to take us to closed circuit coverage of WrestleMania. Did you ever take in one of those closed circuit wise? Because I took in probably 3.
No, I never did. No, I never did. I remember. I just remember being in elementary school, and it was in the front page of the Daily News of WrestleMania, and I wasn't into wrestling at the time, so the first WrestleMania. I mean, my time was, you know, shit. It was Starcade. You know, oh no, I'm sorry, Clash of Champions. It was Clash of Champions. You know, when my friend introduced me into professional wrestling, and that was in like 1980. I want to say 87. You know,
so Luger against or Flair against Luger.
Yeah, I think it was Flair against Luger, and then I got into it, and then I was about to graduate junior high school to go to high school, and that's when I was watching the Clash of Champions with Sting versus Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm. Well, regardless of whatever format that it took, we certainly can trace back those seminal moments. Those of us of a certain age, as to the rise of Hulkamania, and I think mine was, I heard about WrestleMania 1, but I caught WrestleMania 2, the dual site event on closed circuit television, and that was quite the experience for a youngster. Now, is there ever a more important characteristic of the rise of Hulkamania than mainstream popularity? You know, his charisma, in-ring persona, but most of all, crossover appeal helped bring wrestling to the WWF, definitely, but also wrestling into a global phenomenon, and expanded the fan base significantly. And I look back to, we're talking his cartoon on Saturday morning, being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Yeah, the cartoon was not the best. Being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Has there ever been a more important figure in that respect than Hogan? I don't think so. But what's your analysis?
No, I mean, nobody was as important. I mean, put it this way. Now I forgot the name of the show. We just talked about it. Like he put wrestling on the map in regards to, like all the show. His hand was in everything. I was just gonna bring up because oh my God, Liza Zato TV show,
Learning the Ropes,
and that didn't take off. You know what I mean? But everything Hogan touched was taking off. I love Learning the Ropes. So I wish it would still continue for a little bit, but But think about it, George. Like I said, George Steele was a fucking teacher, and he was wrestling. Tito Santana was a teacher in wrestling, so it's not that far off from the truth, But yeah, I mean, he had his hand in everything. I mean, I saw a toaster that had Hulkamania on it. I remember the fitness. He had a fitness box with a jump rope, a headband, and these blue weights. He had that in there. I mean, yeah, he was the man. He was into everything.
Well, that's the next aspect that is important, and one of the many reasons why WWF eclipsed Jim Crockett Promotions prior to Turner, and that is marketing and merchandise. I mean, that the rise of Hulkamania brought a merchandising boom never seen before. T-shirts, lunch boxes, action figures, the original LJN figures. That was huge in terms of a revenue stream.
No, absolutely. I mean, revenue was just coming everywhere. I mean, I don't even know how much Hulk Hogan was worth in the 80s. I mean, he had just money. The yellow Corvette, the red Corvette with the yellow writing, Hulkamania. I heard stories that he always had new boots all the time before a match because the patent leather used to get crinkly by the laces, and he wanted them to be pristine. So every time he wrestled, he always had a pair of new boots.
We've got another super chat from Benny Loco, which is absolutely true. Hulkster missed out on the George Foreman grill. He was also asked to join Metallica. He also wrestled 370 days in a single year due to Japan bookings. At the start, yes, for sure.
So he missed out. Yeah, he did miss out on the George Foreman grill. I did see the interview that he did. Yeah, it was a blender and the grill, and he picked the blender. That was the thing. He goes, you could choose the blender or the grill, and he chose. And then the other, whatever he didn't choose, went to the other guy because he had first dibs. And that he would have been. Oh shit! If he would have got the fucking the Holster grill, he could have made millions.
That would still be writing checks to him today. Not that he needs anything after that Gawker settlement, but Mr. Showbiz guy is pointing out, looking back at the old WWF magazine, there was merch for nearly the entire roster. Everybody was giving up. Yes, that's true, but I think it all started with the explosion of Hulkamania. What about the early video games on the not Super Nintendo, but the Nintendo Entertainment System? Did you play that one with Hogan against Andre and the crude graphics, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh, dude, I played everything. There was one video game. There was one video game that had Hogan, but it wasn't Hogan because you know it's him, but they changed the name. And also, I mean, I played every wrestling video game there was, but mine was mostly in arcades. My video game, all time favorite video game is WrestleFest.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man, I used to fucking play that all the time. Shit, the Legion of Doom at the end. We dine on what is it? What is it? We thrive on danger and dine on death or something.
Snack on danger and dine on death.
Yeah. I remember that. Those games were awesome, man. I wish I could still have that in my room to play it once in a while. WrestleFest, yeah. But yeah, I played all those games.
I have a cabinet called Retromania, which doesn't have Retrofest, but it's got some real gem arcade games, including an obscure game from Japan in the mid 80s called Exciting Hour. I'll have to send you some screenshots of it. It's a
really
lot, but the Retromania game is really cool. It's got a bunch of your ECW brethren in it, and it's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, the company went out of business, but the cabinet is it's incredible for those old school gamers.
Is that with Stevie Richards and all that stuff?
And Meanie and Will Ospreay's in there, I think, and what's his name, Aldis, and the Road Warriors are in there too.
Yeah, I would have loved to put. Shit, I wish I would have. What was in it?
You should be in it. When are you still getting those checks from ECW Anarchy Rules? Or
oh yeah, I'm getting a shitload of checks. Whatever. Shit.
That's too bad. That was a great game. Moving on, we would be remiss. Now, this is somewhat of a dead model now, but at least for wrestling. But Hogan was responsible for the pay-per-view expansion and revenue for wrestling. He was the draw. He would sell them out. WrestleMania, and then when later on when it expanded into the other cards, do you think there would have been that successful period, mega successful period of pay-per-view without Hogan?
That's really hard to say, especially what we know today. But like I said, he was the flagship, so I don't want to say yeah and then try to figure out who would have been the person who would have been, holding the flag, taking control, because Hogan was a different breed, and he caught lightning in the bottle. So I think it would have took wrestling longer if Hogan was not part of, that big event. You know what I mean? I think it would have took us a little longer.
Well, I don't think, not only in terms of pay-per-view, but those super cards. Starrcade was, as Dusty said, the granddaddy of them all. But WrestleMania, the early WrestleManias, 1, 2, 3, especially 4, to a lesser extent. But look back at that WrestleMania 3, inflated attendance figures, be damned or whatnot. But WrestleMania 3 would not have been one of the most successful events of all time without that Hogan Andre main event. Like, I think the WWF was saying 93,000 people in the now defunct Silverdome, but realistically it was close to about 73. That's a big accomplishment even to this day when we look at what AEW did at Wembley last year in August. But you can't argue that Hogan was the major draw and drawing force behind those mega events.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is this, man. Like I said, I mean, if I could close my eyes and look at all the big things that he's done in this business, to taking these pay-per-views to a whole different level. Yeah, there was corny ones and there was good ones, but they were all memorable ones. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I said, even though the Zeus match sucked, I still remember it. So it's
Mm-hmm.
still,
Mm-hmm.
it's still something to remember by. So, like I said, he was the father of professional wrestling, man. He was the guy who made everything happen and put a lot of money in a lot of people's pockets. Due to the fact of Hulkamania. Like I said, Hollywood Hogan, then he reinvented himself into Hollywood Hogan, and that even took another turn. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so he had like two moments in time to kind of like resurrect his career, knowing that Hulkamania was dying. No, really three. Think about it. So, Hulkamania, then that kind of was dying. Then Hollywood Hulk Hogan, then it was dying. And then all of a sudden he brought back Hulkamania again after the Rock and Hogan match.
Mm-hmm. For that last run that he had with the nostalgia tour with the title, yeah, for sure. One of the major aspects of Hogan, which a lot of people will overlook, or perhaps less that. Oh, there we go. Hey, that's good. You saved it to 30 minutes this time. Always has the same effect. And you know what the rib is? I keep forgetting about it.
That's the best part.
Every show we do, I'm like, I totally forget about it, and you get me every time. But if we're looking at crossover appeal into other entertainment genres, we touched on TV, movies, but not only that, Hogan was on Entertainment Tonight. Hogan was on radio shows of
TV.
significant reach at the time, TV, everything. He was on. Remember that talk show appearance with
With
Richard
Richard
Belzer?
Bezer, and he knocked him out. Well, not knocked him out, choked him out, split
Choked
his
him
head.
out. Smart tried to instill a little respect for the business into him. So that I mean, although wrestlers made sporadic appearances, before in mainstream venues, he really was the one that got that going and paved the way for others, including like Macho was on Arsenio Hall and other television programs. But he really needs the credit for that, and of course Vince McMahon, who no doubt booked those appearances. Or
Absolutely, Regis, Kathy Lee. They
yes,
were
forgot about that.
everybody was on that show. I mean, I'm trying to close my eyes. Sally, Jesse, Raphael. I
Mm-hmm.
remember, stuff like that. So yeah, man, everybody was getting a piece of the taste of success due to the rise of Hulkamania. It helped them, elevate their career.
which which is interesting because wrestling had a significant stigma from a mainstream perspective prior to Hogan's rise and the rise of Hulkamania. Wrestling was, as McMahon said a number of times, taking it out of the smoky, darkened halls, etc., and bringing it out into a degree of respectability in the mainstream. That really was Hogan.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, like, and another thing, Rocky 3.
Of
He was,
course.
he was in that too. So
Underlips. How could we forget that? In fact, a fan did comment on that earlier. That was a significant event as well. And Stallone actually put over Hogan and the wrestling business when that movie was being filmed, which assisted as well, saying, you know what, these guys are real deal, legit athletes.
yeah, I mean, Hogan was fired, because to do the movie because Vince Senior didn't want him to do it. Because if you do it, don't come back. He goes, I'm going to take that opportunity. And he took it. So I mean, he was getting eyes on him from everywhere, man.
Mm-hmm.
Hogan, like I said, Hogan is the best, man. He's the man that made everything. And like I said, Ric Flair is the man that made everything, but Hogan was the one that put it on the map.
And he also changed the in-ring product significantly. Like if you look at 80, the reign of Bob Backlund, which was about 7 years in total, this Vince Sr., like the legit collegiate background shooter style champion, but incredibly boring, the All-American boy, blah, blah, blah. And then
that's my favorite song. All American boys.
Yes, shout out
All
to Jacques
American
Rougeau, who will be
boys.
the subject of an interview for Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast coming up.
Oh,
Definitely one of the greatest themes of all time and one of the greatest tag team heel runs of all time, in my opinion. But Backlund was a dry, what you see is what you get. And by the time 84, 83, 84 rolled around, he was stale, and Hogan came in and completely flipped the script from a more sports-based presentation, if you will, to sports entertainment.
Yeah, no, I totally agree 100%. I mean, let me ask you a question. What is your favorite Hulkamania moment?
Oh, that's easy. One of the first because I was a fan of wrestling dating way back, but I was watching the old All-Star Wrestling promotion out of BC when it was a territory of the NWA, and then when Al Tomko broke off, and it was it was the first nationally televised syndicated wrestling program, one of the first WWF programs that I got was in and around the time Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, turned on Hogan.
Oh, yeah.
In that tag match against Bundy and Studd, and he pile drove him. I was hooked. That I can trace that back right to the point where I was like mesmerized with pro wrestling. That was absolutely my favorite moment. And that program that they had, God rest Paul Orndorff's soul, but what a badass customer. That cage match on Saturday night's main event, you could watch that 100 times and it still holds up to this day. But yeah, that match in his program against the Heenan family in general, that was it. What about you?
My favorite is the demise of the Mega Powers.
Yeah.
Especially where Macho Man did that infamous promo,
Lust in his heart.
Yeah, lust in his heart. You love Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I mean, that was more. I mean, because the thing about it, Macho Man was a jealous type of person. I'm not saying that's what it was, but he showed it through it, man. He made it look good.
Well, the thing about Macho and Hogan, from what I've read and understand through talking to people that were there, is the fact that a lot of the truth or the storyline was a couple steps away from that paranoid jealousy that Savage had, and the fact that they could channel that and do business in a professional way made it believable. Remember the deal in the backstage where Elizabeth was hurt against the Twin Towers and Savage attacked Hogan in the back? That was, if you watch that today, that's some real shit.
Yeah, because that's when Elizabeth got knocked off the apron. Hogan picked her up, took her to the back. Macho Man got beat up. I think he lost. And then she's on the stretcher, and then Macho Man jumped over the stretcher, and they started fighting. Yeah, it was awesome. That's what I.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, here is a really excellent question from Ditka89 Super Chat. Do you believe the rumor that Backlund refused to drop the strap to Hulkster because he wasn't a legit amateur wrestler? This has been discussed quite a bit. What are your thoughts on that? Knowing
I heard it was true. I met Bob Backlund.
No way. When?
At Gleason's.
Oh, okay.
Because him and Johnny are good friends, and he had what was he doing? I remember he was working out in the ring. He had a step stool, like a little wooden step stool, and the wheel, and he was selling it on his website as a portable workout thing, and he
Mhm.
was just working out, man. The guy was a machine. I mean, he was old then, and he was a
Mhm.
machine. He blew
Mhm.
us out of the water. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, he was. It's weird, man. I mean, I can't say he was weird, but he just had this funky vibe to him. You know, nothing bad. He just made you tit your head back a little bit. Nice guy. It's just he was just that crazy Bob Backlund thing he used to do thing. Like he
Mr.
had that.
Bob Backlund.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had that weird, just like that character, just a little bit. It was just nice guy, but it was just funny.
What I heard or read, and I'm going to shout out John McAdam for those that don't listen to the Stick to Wrestling podcast on the Arcadian Vanguard podcast network. You should, because McAdam is and his guests are encyclopedic in terms of a lot of wrestling history, especially the WWF pre 1984. And from what I was what I recall is
Mhm.
it was a combination of Vince Sr. not being high on him for that reason, and the philosophy being that for credibility purposes to ensure that the world title means something, you have to have a legit wrestler with a collegiate background, what have you, holding it. And that was the reason why, because allegedly at the time Hogan couldn't really wrestle. Now, all that to be said, I have heard and also read from other people that Hogan could actually go in a catch as catch can chain wrestling style, but he didn't because that wasn't part of the Hulk Hogan character at the time. So excellent question there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now, when we're looking at you touched on the phases of Hogan's career, all of which were very monumental to a number of degrees in terms of the impact on the business. What like to ask you from a worker's perspective, what do you think there was an impact on you and how you did business in the ring, and how you um, you know developed your character, given that Hogan uh, changed the game and made the focus more on entertainment? Did that have any conscious impact on you, or would that be unconscious or
No,
otherwise?
repeat it again.
The way that Hogan changed the game in terms of making wrestlers more entertaining and phasing out some that weren't. Did that have any impact on you personally and how you approached your character and what you did into the ring? Did you have a conscious sort of intention to be entertaining, or did you just go out there and do what you did?
No,
Or
I just did what I did. I was more focused on trying to make the character the Kingpin his own entity, and try to like change. You know, don't want to be a cookie cutter of the same type of wrestle. Like, you know, I wanted to be something different. You know, I wanted to be different than New Jack. I wanted to be different than RVD and stuff like that. So I was just trying to and hype up myself. You know, like usually your character is an extension of who you are, and all I did was just amp up who I was. You know.
in the individuals that you worked with or encountered in ECW, did they have any personal stories or memories of Hogan that you were aware of? Like, what was the buzz on the man, or was there any, given the upstart rebellious nature of ECW at the time?
No, man, nobody. I never heard anybody chip their teeth about Hogan and stuff like that. I mean, he was never mentioned in the locker room from the time I was there. So, we were just more focused on us, you know. I mean, yeah, if he would have came in, it'd be a different story. But we were just focused on ECW and trying to get ourselves over. So if it was Scott Hall coming in, if it was Dusty Rhodes coming in, if it was, you know, Bobby Eaton coming in, you know, we had the major stars coming in, then we would have, you know, said, oh shit, Bobby Eaton is coming in. And then, you know, that's when the guys go, oh yeah, I wonder if he's cool and something, you know, that's the only time.
Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting, perhaps off-topic super chat from Dom DeLuise, wanting to know if Harlem Heat will ever reunite.
I'm not saying they're old. I'm just saying I don't think that's their best interest right now. Booker's doing his podcast. Stevie Ray's doing his own thing. I don't even. If they do come back, it'll be just like an appearance in the ring and do one big move. But I don't see the guy doing the spinneroonie, leg six. Also the leg scissor kick, probably blow his back out. Because he hasn't stretched. And I don't ever see him coming back.
Have you been following the ongoing acrimony between Booker T and one Ahmed Johnson, as per Ahmed's appearances on the Cheap Heat Productions wrestling podcast and numerous stories in the wrestling media? Have you been following that, sir?
No, you've been sending me the link, so I don't need to follow it. You supply me with the information. Yeah, I saw the interview where Booker T was talking about, Ahmed told him to come down to his dojo. I didn't even know the guy had a dojo. And come down to his dojo and fight. And then Booker T was like, I ain't going to do that. But if we meet each other on the street, I'm just going to let you know I'm not going to press any charges. But whatever happens, happens. So, shit, man. Booker's at that age where he's just like, you know what? I'm not even going to address that issue. If we come across paths, with each other and it comes to blows, then that's a different story. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because apparently Booker slighted Ahmed and refused to acknowledge him and said some nasty words about him, and then Ahmed just responded in kind. I think the best way to solve that situation would be to engage in the debate that Ahmed has challenged Booker to. Whether or not that happens or not, it remains to be seen. But yeah, it's a strange sort of conflict to have, given the fact that we're looking at the last time they were in the same company was a long time ago. But fans, stay tuned to the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling podcast for details along those lines. There's a debate coming up where Booker has been invited to attend, and my partner on that channel, Maurice Short Hall, is on top of that story. And of course, we have a partnership with the Hannibal TV that we certainly enjoy. So back to Hulkamania, and without doing an impression, because I do a better Macho Man. What if you could sum up his legacy and longevity in the business? What do you think that would be in terms of his contributions to pro wrestling itself? And then I'll ask a follow up to that surrounding some of the comments that are online about him making a return to WWE to celebrate the anniversary.
You asked me what I think about him coming back to the anniversary?
No, what do you think his enduring legacy is to pro wrestling to this day in 2024, 40 years later?
Brother, he's on the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling. He will always be remembered. He will always be iconic. He will always be. There's certain people in this world that's always going to be iconic. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Stone Cold. People, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, but when you get to those levels, man, you're gonna live forever, doing those type of, So I think he etched himself in for forever in people's minds, because they're always gonna have Hulkamania. They're always gonna. Even when he dies, they're still gonna, DVDs, everything is still gonna be, well, not DVDs, but just, broadcasting matches and stuff. He'll always be remembered.
Yeah, that can't be denied, because many people to this day, when you mention wrestling, they say Hulk Hogan. Look at the fans. They're on fire today. Dom DeLuise is asking again, do you think the Hulkster hooked up with the fabulous Moolah?
Hell no. Back in the day, she didn't look that bad.
as the jungle. What was her name? The assistant or
Jungle Jane
jungle
or
girl, something
Jungle
like
Girl
that.
Jane or something. Yeah, no, I mean, she wasn't that bad looking. Even Mae Young was not that bad looking back then. But
Another fan is contributing that I think Hulk started that rumor. Wow.
that he slept with her.
Yeah.
I heard she was a bitch though. I saw her at the airport during ECW. I never spoke to her, but I remember we crossed paths at the airport, and she was with Mae Young at the time. But I mean, she wasn't that bad looking. I'm looking at some pictures, But
I think one individual that I've had the pleasure of interviewing several times knew her well, Nigel Sherrod. He does work in a couple of women's promotions. I think she's misunderstood, and the history around her training practices and human resources policies isn't exactly accurate. Whether Hogan hooked up with her or not, that'll be debated
I
till
don't think so.
the end of time. But I would say not, because I think he got married in 1983 to Linda. Did he not?
I think so, man. I don't remember when they got married. I know they were together for quite a while, so I really don't know. Her name used to be called I hear Fabulous Moolah, the Fabulous Moolah, Slave Girl Moolah, and the
That's it. That's
Spider
it.
Lady.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. They should have painted her black if they wanted to call her Slave Girl Moolah.
Oh, I'm not going to touch that, bro. The fans are definitely on fire today, and we appreciate all the interactivity. I will close this topic with a very simple statement from my perspective, and that's, I don't think you or I would be sitting here having this discussion if it weren't for Hulk Hogan. I think he is the one for those of us of a certain vintage who captured our interest and carried the business forward into what it is today, which was a very, not to diminish the territories and the fact that many people made very good livings. But if you look at the WWE corporate entity today, billions and billions of dollars in revenue, I don't think without Hogan, and not to diminish the fact that McMahon was also the important ingredient in that mixture, but without Hogan, we would not be sitting here having this discussion. Talk about
I fucking agree, man. I mean, without Hogan, there would not be anything. Like I said, wrestling would still be around, but I just think he just gave it a kick in the ass. I mean, Hogan was the man, and he's the guy that made things happen. So, I mean, can't blame him.
Did you ever see him wrestle live in the glory years, so to speak?
Yeah, remember I told you in 1988 I went to SummerSlams in the Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there.
I saw him twice in Maple Leaf Gardens, once against Macho Man and once against Paul Orndorff. And each time the pop was something that, everybody talks about the Road Warrior pop.
Yeah.
No disrespect to them, but those pops were the absolute loudest, notwithstanding the WrestleMania that I saw him at as well. I'm talking the glory years. That was something else I'll never forget.
No, I fucking agree. But like I said, I mean, I've been to live events, and I think that's the one that sticks in my mind. I've probably seen others, but like I said, I was at the first SummerSlam. So SummerSlam. I keep saying slams.
There you go. Well, that was an interesting discussion. Did not disappoint. Fans, as always, we appreciate your participation, your comments. Feel free to send those in. Continue to send in the topic ideas and your comments in general. They're greatly appreciated. Kingpin, for our next show, I have been thinking for a while about looking at ranking the greatest tag teams of all time, and you being being involved in tag team encounters are very, very well situated to provide your analysis on that. I am a fan of tag team wrestling and the heights that it reached in the 80s during that period. You know, we talked about the Rougeaus, we talked about Road Warriors,
Yeah.
but also Hart Foundation, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, on and on and on. And I think that would be an interesting topic for us to look at with the fan participation as well. What do you think about that, sir?
I think it'd be great, man. And like I said, there's a lot of tag teams that, like I said, I was a huge tag team fan too. From a gentleman, Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez to the Four Horsemen, Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson. I mean, just of course the Brainbusters. That's another monarchy. The Legion of Doom. The fucking.
How about Doom? Butch Reed and Ron Simmons.
Yeah, that was a good tag. There's a lot of great tag teams. I mean, yours probably the Sheep Herders, the Sicilians. Those old gimmicks.
You mean the Bushwhackers?
Yeah, but they were back in the days. It was the Sheep Herders.
Yes, sir. That's when they were, in my opinion, at their best. And I have had the pleasure of interviewing them, including the late Butch Miller before his passing. They were a wild, hardcore tag team, especially those matches against the Fabulous Ones.
Oh, yeah.
But what about the Midnight Express, too? They have to be on that list.
Oh, and the Fantastics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the Rock and Roll Express.
Yes. Yeah, it's sad that tag team wrestling has, for the most part, lost that prominence that it once had. But there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think that would be a topic worthy of getting into. And fans, if you have your ideas, please send them in. Until then, Kingpin, what are your final thoughts, sir?
Well, my final thoughts is just, the guy's a legend. The guy is a man who just, like I said, put wrestling on the map. My hat's off to him. He earned his time, to relax and to thrive off WrestleMania. So, I mean, I hope he appears on the 40th anniversary of WrestleMania. I think it will happen. And, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and believe in yourself. And that's what he did and became successful.
And also, let's not forget that whole Rock and wrestling connection, the war to settle the score, the feud with Piper, and one of the top 5 theme songs of all time, if not in the top 3, that would be the Real American by Rick Derringer. Has there ever been a more iconic theme song?
No. Besides it, All American Boys. All American.
And Bad Street USA. Don't forget that.
Bad Street USA. Don't ask me to sing the French part because I can't parlez-vous français, whatever the shit they talk about.
Tell all the pretty girls the Rougeaus are on their way.
Dude, like I said, when you play babyface but your heels, you know what I mean? That's why I always remember that. They was just so over.
That was a golden time frame indeed. And again, we're going to be interviewing Jacques Rougeau, the Mountie, upcoming this month. So that will also be broadcast on the Hannibal TV. So fans, make sure that you watch for that.
You got to tell them I put them over, man, because you got to, when you do the show, say, hey, man, out of all the gimmicks, the Mountie, all that shit, All American Boys, Rougeau Brothers is my favorite gimmick. And
the little teeny tiny American flags. That's heat, man.
It's funny, before we go, I heard the French part, the little segment, they were saying shit like they were shitting on Americans in that French part that I read in an article, So
amazing. And shout out to one of the questions we'll ask is Jimmy Hart, who came up with that little number.
He wrote the ditty, yeah. The guy's a genius, man. He's a musical genius, man. He came up with a lot of gimmick songs for a lot of people. I mean, what was that song? I think he did Pile Driver. I think he did. What's that? If you only knew what I would do to you.
You're running it here as fast as 2 feet could carry. I was seeing that the other day, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I think he's the one that wrote that too.
Yes.
So Jimmy Hart's the man, bro.
bucket list interview for me, and I'm sure we could do some good business with him in an interview. Keep working on that one. Know some people that know him, so it's possible. But fans, make sure if you haven't subscribed already, do so for the HannibalTV.com, and you will be kept apprised of all the upcoming interviews that we have and episodes of Shooting from the Hip podcast. But until our next episode, I'm Jack Kilby, the gentleman, and this is the Kingpin, Angel Medina. Take care, everybody.
Peace out.
Out.